Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Well, welcome back. Well, it's been a while since we've had our good friend Avi Lipkin with us. He's the author and speaker and co-founder of Israel Today magazine. 30 years of experience in the Israeli Defense Force, IDF, reserves for 16 years, in the artillery reserves, 14 years in the IDF as a spokesman. And we really value our relationship with Avi because he's a tremendous resource. So we are really honored to Skype him in today. Hi, Avi, where are you?
I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Nice to see you again. How you doing, my friend?
Good to be back again on your show.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, tomorrow, as you know, Netanyahu's meeting with Obama, and Obama's being a little threatening to him. Where do you see these talks going?
Well, I don't mean to be facetious, but I think that the world is beginning to understand that whatever promises the American government makes to Israel will never be fulfilled. I mean, you see what's happening today with Russia and with Ukraine.
Right.
This is a very clear message to Israel that the United States is not going to defend Israel under any circumstances. And so if Israel says, okay, we'll make peace, quote unquote, with the Palestinians, we'll give up the land, we'll give up Jerusalem, we'll give up this. And then, as you know, the Palestinians have no intention of ever having real peace with Israel. The incitement will continue, the terrorism will continue. And then when Israel inevitably has to put its foot down, the United States is going to say, well, you're on your own.
Wow.
So if I were Netanyahu, I'd hold my ground.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow, but it doesn't appear that this administration has Israel's back. And yet there's a lot of us in the country who support Israel are really sickened by our administration's stance with Israel.
Well, I always say it like this. I see 5 elements in American policy. I see the American people, I would say liberally, 70% of the American people claim to be Christians, go to church. The overall support for Israel among the American people is 70%. Congress, unbelievably bipartisan support for Israel, including many Democrats. And so that's about 80%. And the military are, the American military sees Israel as a military ally. Israel marches in lockstep with the American military. Israel's 2 problems primarily are the State Department and the White House. And this is a tradition that goes back many decades, way before Obama. So, part of the work that I'm doing is grassroots in churches all around the country to explain Israel's position and why Islam is a threat through the Palestinians to Israel, and that Islam is a threat to Christian America as well. You've got other great people, like a former ambassador, Yoram Ettinger, who works very extensively in Congress, but he's also not going out to the grassroots level and meeting in churches and, radio and TV all over the country like I do. So I think that this is a long-term battle for the heart and soul of the American people to stand with Israel. And, I mean, unless Obama goes for a 3rd term, he'll be out of there in 2 years. America simply has to find a way to outlive Obama.
Yeah, well said. All right. From your intelligence and, of course, the monitoring that you do for your magazine, what are you hearing in Arab media broadcasts concerning Israel?
Well, the Islamic approach is to pretend that they want peace, to go through all the motions. And but of course, if they're not ready to recognize Israel as a Jewish state, if they're not ready to back down from some of their demands, which basically call for the annihilation of Israel, then there will be no peace agreement. And, if you have an Islamic system that says that the Jews and Christians are monkeys and apes, then apes and pigs, we have a religious problem here. And these people come to America, and then they say that we're going to pray to the same God. Allah and God are the same. It's called Chrislam, which is complete nonsense. It's, those are the synagogues of Satan, because Allah is Satan. I don't know if you know this, but I have a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for saying that Allah is Satan, and that Islam is a criminal psychosis. So there is a religious problem here, and I do believe that Obama is a Muslim. This is the information that my wife is constantly picking up as she monitors their broadcasts. And their plan is to Islamicize America. So the bottom line is, this is the long haul here. The Muslims are trying to Islamicize America, and I, Avi Lipkin, the Jew from Israel, am trying to Christianize America. That America should not, forget its Christian roots. America should go back to its Christian roots. Otherwise, America is finished. This is my opinion.
We seem at the point of constitutional crises, Avi, in America. We got a president that has clearly gone rogue, and we don't know how to exercise our balance of powers and our constitutional rights to stop him from governing through executive order, which means he basically can turn his back completely on Israel, and we can't stop it.
That's very correct, and that's the reason, especially in view of all the lies that he has lied in the last 5 years, this is the reason why Israel must stand firm, keep the territories that it has now. Otherwise, we're committing suicide, and America will not come to, under Obama, will not come to Israel's defense.
Wow. What is the real story on the West Bank? Who occupies, who owns, what's the real estate agreement there?
Okay, well, obviously, I would have to give a very, very long 2 or 3 hour speech on it, but let me just say it like this. If you remember Mark Twain visited Israel in 1867, and he said that he walked through the land of Israel for 2 full days and did not encounter a human being. And he said, if this is the promised land, I sure don't want it promised to me. The land was empty. There was no Palestinian people. What you had was, you had a Jewish majority in Jerusalem, and you had a Jewish presence all these 3,000 years in Israel. You had a Jewish majority in Jerusalem and in other places. And what happened was, as the Jews began to come back from many countries all over the world, so too did Arabs flock to the land of Israel looking for work. So you had Arabs coming from Saudi Arabia, from Sudan, from Iraq, from Egypt, from Syria, from Lebanon. And, because of the Jewish return, there was work. And especially after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the British mandate also brought more work. And so all of a sudden you had this group of people, of Arabs and Muslims, coming to live. We have Turks also came to live in the land of Israel. And today all of a sudden they call themselves the Palestinian nation, which is fiction, never existed before. Until 1962, 64, the Palestinians were the Jews. The Arabs would be very incensed, very offended if you call them Palestinians. Now, regarding the West Bank, or properly called Judea and Samaria, are the heart of the Holy Land for the Jews and the Christians. That Jerusalem is never mentioned once in the Quran. Israel is mentioned 3 times in the Quran, that Allah commanded Moses and the Jewish people to take the land of Israel. It's in the Quran.
Wow.
It never said that it should be a Muslim country. But Jerusalem is never mentioned once. And the land itself, if you want to start talking about legally, who owns it? The League of Nations, and even before the League of Nations in 1917, said that there should be a homeland for the Jews in what was then Jordan and the land west of the Jordan River, which is what we know today as Israel. From day one, the Arabs were rejecting any kind of a territorial compromise over anything. 1936, there was something called the Peel Commission, which gave the Jews basically the land between what is today Tel Aviv and Haifa. The Arabs rejected that too. In 1947, the United Nations offered them this cockamamie map. The Arabs still said no, and the Jews said yes, even though it was a crazy cockamamie map. And then in 1967, they attacked Israel again, 48, 67. So Israel is constantly being attacked. It's not a question of the territories, the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, the settlements. All of this is irrelevant. The problem is a religious problem in which Islam cannot tolerate any Jewish or Christian presence, infidel presence in their midst. And so it's not a question of who owns the land. And the land, you can say legally today that they are disputed. Mm-hmm. And that there should be a negotiation over who's going to control what. Wow. But I think it's very important, and I'll conclude that point now. United Nations is not pro-Israel. Right. But in 1968 and in 1974, United Nations came out with 2 resolutions, 242 and 338, saying that Israel should negotiate with its neighbors for new borders which are secure, recognized, and defensible. Nowhere did it say that Israel has to go back to the suicide lines of June the 5th, 1967. But that is the actual stance of the U.S. State Department, that Israel must commit suicide. Israel cannot give up Judea and Samaria because then Israel will not be able to defend itself. It will be committing suicide.
All right, one more question before we take a break. The current proposal on the table, does it include the two-state solution or proposed solution, and how do Jews respond to that?
Well, yes. I mean, the idea is this is what Netanyahu has been saying, a two-state solution. But if the Arabs are saying, that the Palestinians are saying that Israel must go back to the borders of June 5th, 1967, which are suicide borders, including half of Jerusalem, which Israel will never do, then there will be no Palestinian state. It's like, I don't know if you remember the Aesop's fables of the boy sticking his hand in the cookie jar, and he grabs so many cookies that he cannot get his hand out of the jar.
Right.
This is what the Arabs are doing. They're demanding so much that they're not going to get anything. And this has been tragically their mistake all along.
Wow. All right, let me take a quick break here. Avi Lipkin's with us today, and we're talking about the state of Israel and their surrounding so-called neighbors, and we'll be right back after this. Okay, we're back and continuing our discussion with Avi Lipkin. And by the way, he heads up the Israel Today magazine, and he's authored several books. Perhaps you have read some of them. If not, Avi, how can people get a copy of your books and your website?
People can either go to my website or call an 800 number. The website is vicmord, VICMORD.com, half of Victor, half of Mordecai.com, my pen name.
Okay.
People can also call 1-800-540-0828. They will probably respond as Victor Mordecai, but Avi Lipkin is Victor Mordecai. But the books can be ordered on the 800 number as well. All
right, check it out. And can they get information on subscribing to the magazine there too?
You know what? I'm not sure, but if people write to me at my website, vicmord.com, or my internet address, which is vicmord2001 at yahoo.com, I'll give them all the information they need to order Israel Today.
Okay. What's the situation with Iran from your perspective?
Well, I think that what we are seeing here is an emasculating of the U.S. military to the extent that President Obama promised, it's another one of his lies, he promised that Iran would never get a nuclear bomb. Iran will get a nuclear bomb unless it is stopped by Israel. The United States will not go against Iran because who's backing Iran? The Russians. Will America do anything about the Ukraine? America's not going to do anything about the Ukraine. So, and I have news for you. After the Ukraine, you know what the Russians are going to do next? They're going to take Latvia. Latvia, one of the Baltic republics, has a 40% Russian minority there. So, of course, the Russian military has to protect its minority in Latvia, meaning reconquering Latvia. So, you know, the question is, if America has a military smaller than Pearl Harbor, America's in a pitiful state.
Yeah. Yeah, we're watching the defunding of our military. Now we got the crises in the Ukraine, and of course the other hot spots around the world. You've got Karzai basically sticking his finger in our eye as on his way out the door. We're in pretty bad shape, and it's quite alarming because you wonder, we're not prepared to go in and do anything with Iran, and I don't even know if we would have your back if you go into Iran.
I'm sure we don't. I'm sure we don't. And this is a very complicated thing because, you see, Obama, according to different assessments, is either a communist plan, a Russian plan, which is one of the reasons why he would never confront Russia, or he's an Islamic plan, in which case he would never go to war against a Muslim country. And he said this in his book, that he would never go to war against another Muslim country. So from the economic perspective, if the Saudis, the Qataris, and others are floating the American economy and floating Wall Street, then the best thing economically is not to do anything and just sit there and go to bed with Islam. And Islam is taking over America. I believe today there are about 20 to 30 million Muslims in the country, and they're going to go up to 50 to 100 million because the Arab Spring countries are depopulating. The Arab Spring countries are self-destructing, and these people are going to starve, and they're going to come to the United States, and the Muslim president is going to receive them. So, it's a horrible situation for the United States, in my opinion, unless people think that selling the soul of America to the devil for money is a good thing, then it's a good thing. But otherwise, America is going to be distancing itself from Israel, but also from Christianity.
Avi, how are you looking at these events prophetically?
Well, I don't want to represent God because obviously I can't. Nobody can. But I think God has a remarkable sense of humor. And, for example, Hillary Clinton for 4 years, when she was Secretary of State, she was bashing Israel. And all of a sudden, one day, a fruit vendor in Tunisia is arrested and because the policeman wanted a bribe, and they confiscate his card, and they confiscate his fruit, and they confiscate his scales to weigh the fruit. And then he was slapped in the face by a Muslim policewoman. He left the police station, poured gasoline all over himself, and he self-immolated, and he died. And the people there in Tunisia were watching this with cell phones. Everything was on tape. Everything was on cell phones. Within minutes, the whole country knew about it. And this internet thing, Facebook and Twitter and other things, Tunisia went up in flames. That was the beginning of the Arab Spring. And then it spread to Libya, and it spread to Egypt, and it spread to Yemen, and it spread to Syria. And I believe it's going to spread to Saudi Arabia and Jordan. And like I said before, God reshuffles the deck every time. By the way, regarding Russia, I'm not saying to do something against Russia or not, but I think Russia will be getting into extreme trouble if it invades the Ukraine. It will be a Vietnam for the Russians. And then I think in the end, the Russian people will rise up and revolt against Putin, because the Russian people don't want one of these adventures in the Ukraine. What do the Ukrainians want? They want to do business with the European Union. They want to have a better life for their people. And so Russia has this territorial, not Russia, Putin has this territorial insanity of restoring the greatness of the Soviet Union. So I think the Soviets are going to have a big problem if they go into the Ukraine, if they overextend themselves in these wars, these adventures. And, China is still there. China could do something too. And China is also a threat to Russia. Mm-hmm. So, God is going to reshuffle the deck. I think from a prophetic perspective, Saudi Arabia itself is, excuse me, Saudi Arabia itself is going to experience the Arab Spring. And these jihadis who've been fighting all over the world, in Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and Iraq, and in Syria, these people are going to be coming home. And what's going to happen is that they're going to see the king of Saudi Arabia. King of Saudi Arabia is corrupt. He's doing business with the Christian West. These jihadis the chickens are going to come home to roost, and they're going to blow up the oil wells. Saudi Arabia is going to go down the tubes. The Islamic world is going to go down the tubes. And in the end, that God is going to win over Satan. And I say, Allah, Satan. So all of these things are very simple. 1 and 1 makes 2.
Mm. So you think that Saudi Arabia is heading towards some kind of civil unrest, much like Syria?
Absolutely. Saudi Arabia has 40% unemployment. And all this tremendous wealth of oil is concentrated in the hands of 6,000 princes of the royal family. But most of the people don't enjoy the wealth. 40% unemployment. There is no industry. The king is not turning Saudi Arabia green. The Shiites in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia are really suffering. I think Saudi Arabia is gearing up for the perfect storm. And it could be that in the end what's going to happen is it'll be the end of Islam, because I believe Saudi Arabia will be divided up and the oil by the one world government. And, the oil wells will be secured by international forces. Otherwise, they'll get blown up and the world economy will collapse. And that's something that the one world government cannot accept. So your question was about prophecy. And so what I think is, that I foresee the termination of Islam in the not too distant future. The Antichrist is not Obama, though he is Salesman of the Month. I think the Antichrist is going to come out of the one world government that's going to defeat Islam and impose their Antichrist or whatever on the world after they've brought peace and stability to the world. So I think we're in a situation now where the Islam, we will see the eventual collapse of Islam. They are pouring into the U.S. In the end, I believe their only solution will be to convert to Christianity. And it's funny, I'm a Jew saying these things, but a lot of the early Christians were Jews anyway, weren't they?
Yes. So, in spite of all of our problems in America, we're still the greatest country on earth. We got a lot of problems, no question about it. Do you think that America can recover from this Obama nonsense?
Oh, it has to. I believe it can, and it has to. And I know we're running out of time, but I will give one or two quotes which are very close to my heart. 200 years ago, there was a German philosopher by the name of Heinrich Heine. And he said 200 years ago the world is going to have to choose between the foolishness of the Americans and the despotism and tyranny of the Russians. This was 200 years ago, during the time of the czars. And Putin may not be a communist anymore, but he is definitely a czar. It's the same characteristics of 200 years ago. Now, Alexis de Tocqueville said in Democracy in America in 1840, I'm summarizing his books, he said that America will be the greatest country on earth because the American people are a good people and their pulpits are on fire for the Lord. Conversely, America will lose its preeminence when the pulpits are no longer on fire for the Lord. So in my humble opinion, the key to a strong, preeminent America is a strong Christianity in all Christian churches, in all denominations. I would say also one last thing. You know, I've heard this. It's in the New Testament, it's in the Old Testament, that the foolishness of the Lord is greater than the wisdom of man. And, you know, America is foolish in the Lord, I believe. That's why it has been world power number one this last century, as long as it remains foolish in the Lord. If you take out the Lord, which is what we see happening, then America becomes merely foolish, and then America loses its preeminence. So my message, and again, I'm a Jew, I'm not a Christian, but I'm saying the message is there must be a Christian revival in all the churches and in the American people for America not to lose it. And I do not see any other country on the face of the earth replacing America as the preeminent nation. Wow.
Beautifully said. Avi, thank you for your time. And let me just say, you can connect with him at 1-800-540-0828 to get some of his books. And again, your website, vicmord.com.
VICMORD.com. And I do answer all the emails when people write to me. And I should be on the West Coast in August.
Oh, really? Well, let us know when you're close out here. Maybe we can squeeze you in the studio visit as well.
Wonderful. I always suffer for Christ in Florida in the winter, and I suffer for Christ in Oregon and Washington and Vancouver.
Come on up, and we'll get you some, maybe some salmon fishing in or something like that. How's that?
Oh, I love the salmon up there.
Okay. Thank you, Avi. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you. All right. Avi Lipkin with us today. Again, vicmord.com. You may want to check that out. And again, the 800 number, 800-540-0828. And you may want to check out some of his books. He has written is fabulous, and he's quite the spokesman, to say the least. And you may want to see what you can do to possibly subscribe to Israel Today magazine. Israel Today magazine. Check it out. That you perhaps have seen him on the Sean Hannity Show, Fox and Friends. He also has a pen name is Victor Mordecai. Maybe you have seen him for that, or seen him on television with that name. So again, let me encourage you to check it out, and check out his book called Is Fanatic Islam a Global Threat, which was a 1997 bestseller. Which, by the way, in that book, he also told about the possibility of a 9/11. And here it is. It happened. So you may want to check it out. Is Fanatic Islam a Global Threat? By Victor Mordecai. And, of course, his air name is Avi Lipkin. So check that out. All right. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.